So yesterday we have discussed the complex power absorbed by a three-phase balanced resistive load and three-phase balanced capacitive load. So now we'll continue with the same discussion. Now we'll discuss the complex power absorbed by three-phase balanced capacitive load. So let all this be the capacitance C. So what will be the impedance value? It will become minus J by omega C minus J by omega C minus J by omega C, where C is the capacitance per phase and the capacitive reactance will become minus J by omega C. Let the line-to-line voltage is VL, line-to-line voltage across the two conductors. Now, what is the formula for complex absorbed? Complex power absorbed by the load is given by VL square divided by ZL conjugate. VL square divided by ZL conjugate. Okay. Now, so here what is ZL? ZL is equals to minus J by omega C, so many ohm. Now, if you do this one, S load will become VL square divided by minus J by omega C whole conjugate. Okay, so this will become VL square by, if I keep conjugate, this minus J will become plus J. So if it goes on top, okay, let me do one more step, J divided by omega C. So S load, if I split into P load plus or minus J Q load, it will become VL square omega C. This J will become minus J. So reactive power absorbed by the load is minus VL square omega C. Reactive power absorbed by the load will become minus VL square omega C, so many var. So here minus sign indicate what? It is absorbing negative reactive power. It is absorbing negative reactive power. So this how do we have to understand this equation? The reactive power absorbed by the load is negative. That is, it is absorbing negative reactive power. The inference is the capacitor bank or the capacitor bank or capacitor bank absorbs negative reactive power. Negative reactive power. What is the other name for negative reactive power? Leading reactive power. Leading reactive power. Okay. But in power system analysis, we model capacitor not as the element that absorbs negative reactive power, but as an element. So if I change this sentence, reactive power supplied by the capacitor bank will become how much? So the direction of absorption is this one.
Yes.
If you change the direction of the flow of the reactive power, it will become supplied. Supply direction will be like this. So reactive power supplied by the capacitor bank would become how much? It will become
SV.
VL square omega C var. So this is how we model the capacitor. We model capacitor as an element that supplies positive reactive power. Understand? So this is how we treat a capacitor in the power system. We treat inductor as an element which absorbs positive reactive power, capacitor as an element which supplies positive reactive power. Understand? So reactive power supplied by the star connected capacitor bank, which is having a capacitance per phase of C, is given by VL square omega C. VL square omega C, where VL is the line to line voltage across the bank and C is the capacitance per phase. So what is one more thing? The reactive power supplied by capacitor bank, it is directly proportional to square of voltage across it and directly proportional to the frequency, because here omega term is in the numerator. Omega term is in the numerator. In case of inductor, it is reactive power absorbed by inductor is directly proportional to V square by F. In case of capacitor, reactive power supplied by the capacitor is directly proportional to V square into F. I hope this concept is clear. This is very, very important. We model capacitor as an element that supplies the positive reactive power. Okay. So you can read the question and answer. When a three-phase balanced star connected source is supplying a three-phase balanced star connected load, then which is the right option? Which is the right option? Load neutral and source neutral both are at a zero potential, because it is a balanced three-phase system, and in a balanced three-phase system, the neutral potential and ground potential both are at zero. So current through the neutral grounding impedance is zero. So we neglect it, because any element which is carrying zero current, we open circuit it. That means we do not consider its existence. So which is the right option?
B.
B is the right option. Option B is the right option. Okay. Now read this question and tell me the answer.
2 and 4 are option C, sir.
Yeah, option C is the right option. See, simple. You don't have to make. What does inductor do? Inductor absorbs which kind of power? Inductor absorbs positive reactive power and delivers negative reactive power. Obviously, when it absorbs positive thing, it should deliver negative thing. So inductor delivers leading reactive power and absorbs lagging reactive power. So in this, 2 is one correct statement, and when it comes to
2 and 4 are correct.
capacitor absorbs leading reactive power, that is minus Q, and delivers lagging reactive power. So obviously these two are correct, remaining two are wrong. So which is the right option? Option C is the right option. Read this question and try to answer this one. Okay. He's asking the instantaneous power. So had it been a single phase case, it is a product of instantaneous voltage and instantaneous current. So here there are two phases. So the instantaneous power becomes only two phases, that is VAN into IA plus VBN into IB. Had the third phase been, it will become VCN into IC. Only two phases are there. It is very simple question. What is VAN? 220 sine 100 pi t multiplied by what is IA?
10
sine 100 pi t plus what is VBN? 220 cos 100 pi t into what is IB? 10 cos 100 pi t. Okay. So it is, if you multiply this term, what you are going to get? 220 into 10, that would it would become 2200 sine square 100 pi t plus 2200 cos square 100 pi t. Sorry, 100 pi t. Very simple.
2200.
Take 2200 common. Sine square 100 pi t plus cos square 100 pi t is 1. So what is the option?
2200.
So 2200 watt is the instantaneous power supplied by this two-phase source to the two-phase load. It is GATE 2018 some question. Whether you know the meaning of instantaneous power or not. Okay. Next, read this question. Is connected to a three-phase balanced supply as shown in the figure, VAN voltage is how much? 100 at an angle 0. This voltage is 100 at an angle 0. VBN is 100 at an angle minus 120. VCN is 100 at an angle minus 240. Okay. The value of R for zero neutral current is, okay. So he's telling that the neutral current is 0. What is the current flowing in this path? IA. What is the current flowing in this path? It is IB. And here it is IC. So neutral current is IN is the, if you apply KCL at this node, you're going to get IA plus IB plus IC equal to IN. So IN will become IA plus IB plus IC. Since it is phasor, we'll write capital letters. So IN is equals to IA plus IB plus IC, which is he's telling as 0. Now what will be IA? IA is nothing but VAN divided by what is the R value. Similarly here, IB is VBN divided by J10. J10 directly as given in ohm, J10. So when J term is coming, you directly have to note it down. It is the impedance which has directly given. Okay. Had he given this one, he would have given the simple number. VCN divided by minus J10, this is equal to 0. So VAN value is how much? 100 at an angle 0 divided by R plus 100 at an angle minus 120 divided by J10 plus 100 at an angle plus minus 240, I can write it as plus 120 divided by minus J10. So you have to solve this equation to get R. Okay. So it will become 100 at an angle 0 divided by R is equals to, so J, if it goes on to the top, it will become minus J, and again minus minus plus, so it will become 10 at an angle minus 120 minus 10 at an angle plus 120. Okay. So it is J is there common. Anybody say you can treat it as 10 at an angle. J means 1 at an angle 90. So if you multiply with this, you're going to get 10 at an angle minus 30 minus 10 at an angle 210. 210 means 10 at an angle 210. Ten cos minus 30 minus J 10 sin 30 minus 10 cos 210 minus J 10 sin 210. Solve this value, last one which I have written. You solve this one. I think this and this will cancel automatically.
10 cos
100 at an angle 0 divided by R is equals to 0.22. No, we want R value, no?
R value 17.3.
No. R value is not 17.
17.3.
This value will become 17.32.
Yes, sir.
So R value will become 100 divided by 17.32. So the answer would become 5.77 ohm.
100 divided by 6.
See, 10 cos 30 is cos Cos of minus 30 is root 3 by 2.
5.773.
Yeah, 5.77 ohm is the right answer. So what you have to understand in this problem is you don't require calculator to do such problems, because here he's simply testing whether you know two things. First thing is testing whether you understand this is a, if somebody asks you whether it is a balanced system or unbalanced system, what will be your answer?
Balance.
Here the neutral current is 0,
0.
but are the three currents, see the two conditions we must satisfy. This is one of the condition of the balanced system, but only this condition will not tell that it is a balanced system. But there is one more condition, that all mod IA equal to mod IB is equals to mod IC. Is this condition satisfied here? No, this condition is not satisfied. So it is an unbalanced system. It is an unbalanced system. Now you calculate what is IA. Your IA here is how much? 100 divided by 5.77. Your IA current is how much? Your IA current is 17.32 ampere. Your IB current magnitude is 10 ampere. IC current magnitude is 10 ampere. So your IA magnitude is 17.32. IB is 10 ampere and IC is 10 ampere. Are they equal? No. So it is an unbalanced system. Understand? So only this condition will not tell you whether it is balanced or unbalanced. Your neutral current must be 0, and also your magnitudes of IA, IB and IC should be same. Then only the power system is balanced. Read.
Sequence of RBY.
Or
BY.
so for calculating phase sequence, you have to traverse in clockwise direction. Clockwise direction. First, which conductor is coming? First R is coming. Then next second conductor is B. Third conductor is C. This is RBY phase sequence. RBY phase sequence is also called negative phase sequence. Negative phase sequence. What is positive phase sequence? RYB is the positive phase sequence. RBY is the negative phase sequence. Understand?
Yes, sir.
So for finding out the phase sequence, you have to traverse in clockwise direction. So with this, the fundamentals are over. Next, we are going to next chapter, that is transmission lines. So what conductors are widely used in making the transmission conductors? See, don't get confused. When I say transmission lines or transmission conductors, it is not those conductors that are going, they are not only the conductors that are going in the overhead lines. Even the underground cables are also transmission lines. Even the small cable that is connected between your fan switch to the fan, the refrigerator plug point to the refrigerator, all these are all transmission lines. All these are transmission lines only because they are transferring the electrical energy from source to the load. Understand? So when I say transmission line, you don't consider that they are only the big lengthy lines that are flowing in the overhead power system. Okay, anything that carries the energy, electrical energy from source point to the load, it can be termed as a transmission line. Understand? Now tell me what conductors we mainly use for making the transmission lines. Basically copper and aluminum. Copper and aluminum. So where copper is used? Copper is used for household wiring, and copper is used for small distant power transmission, like in where the length is small. Okay, so aluminum is mainly used in overhead transmission and overhead distribution. Okay, now let us compare between these two and find out what is there. So in which copper is having more conductivity than aluminum. What do you mean by conductivity? Conductivity means what? So copper can carry the impedance or the opposition to the flow of electrons inside the copper is less when compared to the opposition that is offered by the aluminum. So the conductivity in copper is more. Density of the copper is more. Density, what is the fundamental formula for density? Mass by
Volume.
volume. Mass by volume. So density is more means it is a heavier material. That means for 1 kg, if you purchase 1 kg of copper, the volume of the copper that you are going to get is less. Density more means volume. Volume is less for same mass. Volume is less. Okay. Next, copper. You can see copper when it reacts with oxygen and moisture, it corrodes. Even your copper bottles where you drink water, if you don't wash them properly, they'll corrode. They will corrode. And copper is costly when compared to the aluminum. The tensile strength is more. Tensile strength means it is a strong, it is very difficult for copper to bend. Okay. So these are the copper features. Aluminum. Aluminum, the conductivity is less, the density is more. That means volume is more. In case of aluminum usually does not corrode. Aluminum is cheaper, the tensile strength is less. Okay. In this comparison, in all aspects, aluminum has advantage when compared to copper. Our transmission conductors that are used in overhead lines, their conductivity is less. Conductivity is lesser. How it is an advantage? Conductivity means how to correlate the conductivity. Suppose I want a conductor that carries say 100 ampere. So if I take a copper conductor, its size will be something like this. It is copper conductor. When I take an aluminum, its size will be like this. This is aluminum. Okay, aluminum. Because here conductivity is more, here conductivity is less. So you may feel that this is an advantage of aluminum, this is a disadvantage of aluminum when compared to copper. But however, in power system applications, having lesser conductivity, that means having more cross-sectional area for carrying the current is an advantage. Why? Because when you have more cross-sectional area, more circumference, then what happens? Your corona will decrease. So in this case also aluminum is having an edge over copper. Now when compared to the density, when you purchase 1 kilo of copper and 1 kilo of aluminum, where you will get more material, more volume of material, you will get more volume of material in aluminum because aluminum is a lighter material, copper is a heavy material. So being a lighter material, what are the advantages you're going to get? It is a lighter material, less dense, so it can be easily drawn into strands. It is having more flexibility when compared to the hard material like copper. So when you have a more flexibility, the conductor can bend. So this advantage is that it is flexible. Next, our overhead transmission conductors are exposed to all rains, winds, moistures, everything. So we need a material that does not react with the moisture, air. So aluminum, since it does not corrode, we don't have any problem. So it is free from corrosion. That is the big advantage of, one more advantage of the aluminum. And moreover, it is a cheaper material. And the tensile strength is less. Tensile strength is less means we can easily bend it. So why this bending property is required? Because when you keep the conductor between two towers, we need a conductor that is flexible so that it can be strung like this. You cannot string an iron bar between two towers. Why? Because you require a very strong support structure, and moreover, when it does not have the flexibility during summer and winter seasons, because of expansion and contraction, it will break. This point will break without handling this one. So we need a flexible material. We need a flexible material. We need a lighter material so that our supports can be less stronger. Okay, so all this makes an aluminum unanimous choice for our overhead transmission conductors. Understand? So these are all 5 advantages of the aluminum over copper. Understand? Any doubt you can ask me in this comparison. Is it okay, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Can I move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, ratings of transmission line. So in ratings of transmission line, there are 2 important ratings. One is there are many other specifications, but what is related to our analysis, in a transmission line, what is the voltage they mention? We know it is a line-to-line RMS voltage. When I say 220 kV transmission line, what is 220 kV? 220 kV is the line-to-line RMS voltage. Okay. Now, when I say, is it a sending end voltage or receiving end voltage? Then the doubt will come. Okay. Almost in high voltage lines, both will be same. The drop will be negligible. It is 0.1% or 0.2%. But however, if you want to be more specific, in a transmission line, the receiving end line to line RMS voltage is specified. The receiving end line to line RMS voltage is specified. Okay. You only go for this one when you have a specific question. Otherwise, almost in all the cases, we assume that the sending end voltage is 99% same as the receiving end voltage. So if you specifically go in deep in a transmission line, we specify the receiving end line to line RMS voltage. Understand? The second is how much power can the transmission line carry? How much power? It is not the real power we decide. It is the complex power. How much complex power it can carry safely without getting overheated, without getting damaged. That is the MVA rating of the transmission line. How much MVA capacity the transmission line can carry without getting overheated or without getting damaged. Understand? So this is given by S line is equals to √3 times the line to line RMS voltage of the transmission line into the current which it can carry, current capacity of the line. So how much apparent power or complex power? Don't get confused between apparent and complex power, because complex power we know it is P plus Q. This is called complex power. If you take magnitude of this one, this magnitude value is called apparent power. Okay, when you express this value as, suppose for example, if I take this is 20 plus J 15. So this is 20 megawatt and 15 MVA, or it is the complex power. If you take the magnitude of this one, you're going to get how much? 25 MVA. 20 square plus 15 square is 25. Square root, it will become 25. So 25 MVA is the apparent power. 20 plus J15 is the complex power. Okay. So this is one more side concept which I explained. So that is the subtle difference between the complex power and the apparent power. So MVA rating of the transmission line is given by how much apparent power it can carry without getting overheated or damaged. S line is given by √3, the line to line RMS voltage of the transmission line and the current carrying capacity of the line. So if someone asks you the current carrying capacity, then what would be its value? You can calculate the current carrying capacity of a transmission line, for which you should know the MVA rating of the line. divided by root 3 into line to line RMS voltage of the transmission. Usually it will come in kiloamperes because this value will be in MVA, this value will be in kV, so this will be in kiloampere. Okay, so the two important ratings that we are interested in transmission line is the line to line RMS voltage of the transmission line and the how much MVA rating of the transmission line. If somebody asks the current carrying capacity also, you can calculate from these values. Okay. Next, the insulation of the transmission line is provided for phase to neutral voltage. Insulation is provided for phase to neutral voltage. Okay. We'll discuss this point, second point, little bit detail in the next slide. The third point is the total real power loss in the transmission line is how much? The total real power loss in the transmission line, if I is the current, if I is the RMS current flowing in conductor, flowing in one phase, single phase conductor, how many phase conductors will be there in transmission line? 3. So the total R is the resistance of one phase conductor. So then total loss, real power loss that occurs in a transmission line is given by 3I square watt. Understand? 3I square watt. And efficiency of the transmission line is given by the receiving end power of the transmission line divided by receiving end power of the transmission line into total real power losses. So this will give you the percentage efficiency of the transmission line. So these are all the three important parameters that we are interested in the transmission line. Okay, so the total real power loss that occurs in the transmission line is 3 times I square R, where I is the RMS current flowing in one conductor, where R is the capital R is the series resistance of one conductor. So the total loss will become 3 times I square R, since there are three conductors in a transmission line, and the transmission efficiency is defined as receiving end power divided by receiving end power plus 3I square R into 100. This is the transmission efficiency of the conductor. Okay, so insulation of the transmission line is provided for phase to neutral voltage. This point we'll discuss little later. Any doubt in this ratings of transmission line?
No, sir.
So next we go for the advantages of high voltage transmission. What advantages we have when we go for the high voltage transmission line? Going into that, first thing I want to tell you is our power system loads are constant complex power demanding loads. Constant complex power demanding loads. Understand? There are different kinds of loads. Constant impedance loads, constant current loads, constant voltage loads. All these loads you will encounter in electronic circuits. The loads which require only constant current, irrespective of other parameters, the load only demands constant current, then it's called constant current load. The constant voltage loads are those loads, they require only constant voltage across them. Suppose if you connect a GNR diode, what you are going to get? You are fixing the voltage. So it is a constant voltage load. Similarly, constant impedance loads are the loads where the ratio of voltage across the load divided by current through the load should remain constant irrespective of other parameters. But in our electrical circuits, most of our loads are the loads which demand constant complex power. Okay, our loads are our electrical power system loads are the constant complex power demanding loads. So SL, how we can write SL is equals to VL square by ZL conjugate. Okay, VL square by ZL conjugate. So this value, how we got, our basic idea was SL is equals to 3 VA conjugate. From there we derived this one. Okay, so if you take only magnitude, I mod I will become how much? SL divided by 3 V. This I can write it as, which implies I mod I is equals to SL divided by root 3 into line voltage. So the first thing I can tell you is the current flowing in a conductor, the current carried by a conductor is inversely proportional to the transmission line voltage. Transmission line voltage. Here why? Because since our load is constant complex power demanding load, if I fix this SL to constant, then the current flowing through the conductor is inversely proportional to the transmission line voltage. That means if I keep on increasing the transmission voltage, the current that is flowing through my transmission conductor is decreased, is getting decreased. So if the current flowing through the transmission conductor decreases, the size of the conductor decreases, and hence a lot of money is saved in the volume of the material is saved, and hence lot of cost cutting will happen. So the first advantage is, see, I am quantifying how much it will reduce. If you increase the transmission voltage by 2 times, the transmission current will reduce by how many times? It will reduce by 2 times. Understand? So if we double transmission voltage, then transmission current reduces to half. If you increase the transmission voltage by 10 times, your transmission current will become how much? 1 by 10th. 1 by 10th. Understand? So this is the advantages. So if the current flowing through the transmission line reduces, the size of the transmission conductor reduces. If the size of the transmission conductor reduces, the weight of the transmission conductor reduces. If the weight of transmission conductor reduces, the size of the support structures, everything will get reduced. Okay, so this is the one fundamental advantage. Understand? So any doubt in this one?
No, sir.
No, sir.
If transmission current reduces, the size and volume of conductor reduces. Okay, now this is the first advantage. You should not blindly tell it will reduce, it will reduce. How many times it will reduce, we have quantified it. Now second advantage, you said transmission loss. What is the transmission loss? Three I square R, isn't it? Now, what is the I value from previous case? How I can write I from the previous case? I is equals to SL by root 3 VL. Can I write this one? SL by root 3 VL square into R. Okay, so this will become root 3 square and 3 will cancel. SL square divided by VL square into R. Okay, so if your transmission conductor is fixed, your resistance is fixed, and if the load complex power is fixed, your SL is fixed. So here SL is constant. If your conductor size is fixed, then your R is constant. So your transmission losses are inversely proportional to the square of transmission voltage. Your transmission losses are inversely proportional to the square of transmission voltage. So this is one more advantage. So transmission losses will definitely reduce, but how many times it will reduce? If you double the transmission voltage, your transmission losses reduces by 4 times. So this is the second advantage. Okay. If we double transmission voltage, our transmission losses are reduced by 4 times. So once the transmission losses are reduced, your transmission efficiency will increase. Okay. Now, what is the power? Active power received at receiving end. Active power absorbed by the load. We have derived VL square divided by RL. VL square divided by RL, where VL is the line to line voltage across load, and RL is the load impedance, load resistance. Okay. Since in a transmission line, the transmission voltage is nothing but the receiving end voltage. So how much power you are able to transfer to the load? Power transmitted to load is directly proportional to Vt square. So if you increase the transmission voltage, you are able to transfer more and more power to the load. That is the most important advantage of the high voltage transmission. That means if you increase the voltage of transmission, you can transfer more and more power to the load. That's why the high voltage transmission, because higher the voltage, more is the power that we can dispatch to the load center. Power transmitted to the load is directly proportional to the square of transmission voltage. For example, in a 33 kV line, if we can transfer say 100 megawatt to the load, if you double this one, if you make it a 66 kV line, we can transfer how much? 400 megawatt. Just for an example, I have given this one. Don't go into the practical this one. So 33 kV line, if you can transfer 100 megawatt, in a 66 kV line, you can transfer 4 megawatt, because the power transmitted to the load is directly proportional to the square of transmission. So these are the 3 quantified advantages of the high voltage transmission. So first one is what? What is the first advantage we have seen? Tell me, what is the first advantage? If we increase the transmission voltage,
then the current will decrease by half.
Yeah, current will, if you double it, the current will decrease by half. If you do it 10 times, the current will decrease by 10 times. So what is the advantage if the transmission current decreases? Once the transmission current decreases, the size of the
conductor decreases, and also losses also
will decrease. Voltage drop in the transmission line will decrease. Okay, because the current is less, the voltage drop will also decrease. You will get better voltage regulation. Okay, so if the current decreases, the three advantages is that size of conductor decreases, losses decreases, and voltage drop in the line decreases. Okay, next, second we have erased. Second thing is that if we increase the transmission voltage by 2 times, our real power transmission losses are reduced by 1/4 times. It will reduce the transmission losses. We have quantified that also. The third advantage is that higher is the voltage transmission, higher is the transmission voltage, we can transfer more and more real power to the load. Understand? So these are the three main advantages of the high voltage transmission. Okay, next, till disadvantages. Cost, good, cost increases. So cost of towers, cost of insulators, cost of transformers, okay, cost of switchgear, okay, and cost of ROW, right of way. All these costs will increase. Higher is the transmission voltage, you require more insulation you have to provide. You have to provide more insulation between the conductor and the tower body. Okay, so the insulation for 11 kV line and insulation for 110 kV line, there is a huge difference. So more number of insulators we have to purchase, and more this one. And since we require more ground clearance, the height of tower also increases, size of tower increases, so cost of towers will increases, cost of insulators will increase. Next, the size of, see, suppose we are using a 33 kV line, generation voltage is 11 kV. What is a step up transformer rating will be? Step up transformer rating will be 11 bar 33 kV. Suppose we are using a transmission line of 400 kV, then what is our step up transformer rating? Step up transformer rating will become 11 kV to 400 kV. So your cost of transformers, even in the step down case also, the transformer cost will increase because we are using high voltage transformers. So cost of transformers increase. Switchgear. So after the transformer, every transmission line will have breakers, relays, and everything. If it is a 400 kV transmission line, our circuit breaker rating should also be 400 kV. Our relay, the CTPTs are, should also be having the insulation of 400 kV. So cost of all insulators, circuit breakers, isolators, everything will increase as the voltage increases. So cost of switchgear will increase. The last one is cost of ROW. ROW is right of way. Right of way. Okay. So now, since you are all electrical students, I'll come down to your house. Since suppose your house is having a big backyard, lot of empty space in your house. So I'll ask, we are laying a 230 kV line. We need to place our 230 kV tower. Will you give your backyard for free? Will you allow us to keep the transmission tower in your backyard? Will you allow?
No, sir.
No. Why?
Due to towers, there are some disadvantages also. It will affect.
Definitely, it will affect. Definitely, it has some disadvantages. I don't want to take a risk. Why I should give you space?
Yes.
Second thing. So, second option I'll give you. Every month I'll give 30,000 rupees as a rent just for keeping my transmission tower in your backyard. Now will you accept? 30,000 rupees per month.
No, sir.
No, 50,000.
No, sir.
1 lakh. I will definitely
No.
accept. I'll accept. Why? Because if they give me 50,000, I'll happily take that 50,000. I'll lock that
But
house and I'll go to a nice
yeah,
apartment
that
and live. Yeah.
that okay. Because staying nearby that tower itself is
Risky.
it's
So,
a risk.
okay. I'll just keep the tower there. I'll lock that house. I'll
Yeah,
vacate
that
that house.
that
Huh.
yeah.
So everyone has this problem. So somewhere we need to keep our towers. In somebody's land, we have to keep our towers. We
Mm.
cannot keep our towers in air. So nobody wants the towers in their area. So
Mm.
what we will do? We'll pay some rent. We'll
Yes.
pay some
Mm.
charge for them for facilitating the placing of our tower. That is called cost of ROW. That is
Okay.
called cost of ROW. So if higher is the voltage, it is more is the cost of ROW. So all these costs will increase. These are the disadvantages of the high voltage transmission. Any doubt in this one?
No, sir.
So there are some advantages and there are some disadvantages. So then what is the choice? Our choice boils down to what? So all the decisions in any industry, any sector eventually are made based on the economics. So whichever is most cost effective, that configuration we will choose in any of the systems. So what is the optimum voltage of transmission? So there is one empirical formula to compute the optimum transmission voltage. So optimum transmission voltage is given by, just to understand what factors affect the transmission selection of transmission voltage, 5.5 into square root of 0.62 L plus P divided by 100. So many kV line to line RMS voltage. All voltages by default are RMS voltage. So this is the optimum voltage where L is the length of transmission line in kilometer, length of transmission line in kilometer, and P is the three-phase active power to be transmitted over transmission line. Be careful, in kilowatt. Okay, so this will give you the optimum voltage you can choose. Okay, so if you plot the curve between cost of transmission line versus voltage of transmission line, based on this, so initially the cost will decrease. After a point it will decrease. So the minimum point is the optimum voltage. Okay, so sir, how the cost will decrease? Because even though there are so many costs in this, so much cost in these disadvantages, but the highest cost saving comes from the saving in the conductor material. We are able to transfer more power to the load by less volume of conductor material. Okay, there is a cost saving in high voltage transmission line, whereas the cost incurred is because of this thing. So when you compare all this, the total cost of transmission versus transmission voltage, the curve will be something like this, where we'll choose the where the cost is optimum, that particular voltage we'll choose it as the optimum voltage for the transmission. Okay, so I want you to solve one simple problem by using this. Suppose my objective is to transfer 400 megawatt of power over a length of 300 kilometer. Now, can you tell me what is the optimum voltage which I have to select? Do this and tell by using this formula.
Oh, 5 kilovolt. Sir. Hello, sir.
So I got 3.84 kV.
3.
Yeah, 355.84 kV. See, what mistake you have done is you have directly taken the 400 megawatt. I said the power transmitted over transmission line in kilowatt. First, you have to write this 400 megawatt in terms of kilowatt. That is 400 into 10 cube. 1 megawatt is equals to 1000 kilowatt. Okay. So from this, you are going to get 355.84 kV. We don't have the 350 kV line or 350.54 kV line. So what is the voltage? Usually we have 230 kV line. After that we have 400 kV line. Okay. Now, so our optimum transmission voltage is between these two. So you first what you will do, you calculate the costs involved in 230 kV line. 230 kV line, the cost is say some 500 crores. 400 kV line, say the cost is 450 crore. So now the choice is which is cheaper when compared to these two voltages. 400 kV line is cheaper, so you go for 400 kV transmission line. So here the choice, the range from this empirical formula, you will get where the ideal range is fixed. So then we will not get the conductors, insulators, tower for 350. You have standard voltages for 230 kV. There are some towers are there, insulators are there, support structures, everything are already calculations are done and they're designed. Even for 400 kV lines, the infrastructure is designed. So out of these two, you can compare the costs. Whichever is cheaper, you prefer that transmission voltage. So here the main point is the optimum transmission voltage is decided by the how much power to transfer and what the length you want to transfer. Based on these two factors, you decide the transmission voltage. What are the two factors? The power to be transmitted to the load and the at what for what length I have to transfer this power. These two factors will decide the optimum transmission voltage. Okay. So next, levels of voltage in India. Levels of voltage in India. Tell me what is the lowest voltage which you know?
11. Okay.
Sure.
No.
Which
3
is
point.
which is the lowest voltage you know?
6.6.
230 volt.
Okay.
Phase to neutral.
Okay.
RMS voltage. Where I'll get this low voltage? In my 3-pin plug point in my house. This is the lowest voltage we'll get in this household. Okay. Next, second voltage which you know is
415.
415 volt line to line RMS voltage. This will get in our distributors in front of our houses. So industry will have different voltages. I work for ONGC where there are 650 voltage rigs are there. 3.3 kV industry. We are base utility. Okay. Industry can have any voltage depending upon their application. But as far as utility is concerned, we are discussing the voltage levels. So any voltage, remember, less than 1000 volt is treated as low voltage. Any voltage less than 1000 volt is treated as low voltage. Okay. I understand. Now, these are the two low voltages which we have in our system. Next is what? high voltage. 7 kV line to line RMS voltage, where you will get feeder. Okay, next voltage which you know is how much?
22.
33 kV.
33.
22 is not there, is there?
Okay.
33 kV line to line RMS voltage. Next value is 66 kV line to line RMS voltage. So all these three voltages are called high voltage. They are called high voltage. 32 line to line RMS voltage and 220 kV, sorry, 230 kV or 230 kV line to line RMS voltage. They are called extra high voltages. Okay. Next. The next level is modern extra high voltage. 400 kV system is called modern extra high voltage. And the highest
765.
voltage in India is
765.
ultra high voltage. Ultra high voltage. So this value is 765 kV line to line RM. Is there any higher voltage in India? I think 765
No, sir. No,
kV
sir.
is the highest.
Only
Is
765,
it
sir.
1200? Okay, in the world, I think they have made 1100 or 1200 line is there somewhere.
Yes, sir.
Search it
In
Google.
Madhya Pradesh also, for 1 kilometer transmission line, 1200 kV one line is there.
So 1200 is there in India somewhere. Very good.
Yeah,
So
Madhya
even
Pradesh.
this is also classified as ultra high voltages. Ultra high voltage. So these are the different levels of voltages that we have in India. Okay. Different voltages in India. Okay. So next we need to observe what is a feeder and what is a distributor. So what is a feeder? See, feeder is also a transmission line, transmission conductor. Even distributor is a transmission conductor. But why different name comes, we have to understand. So feeder is an electrical conductor which is not tapped for power in between. Suppose at a generating station, after stepping up, a transmission line will start. So this transmission line, suppose this is a generating station. After that, there is a step-up transformer. So 11 kV is the generation voltage, let us say. So here this 11 kV is stepped up to, let us say, 132 kV. So this 132 kV line is being transmitted, and at the outskirts of a city, there is one substation which is stepping down the voltage to 132 kV to, it is stepping down this voltage to 132 kV to again 33 kV for local distribution. So till this point, so from this point to this point, nobody is tapping the power from this line. Nobody is tapping the power from this 132 kV transmission line. So it classifies, since nobody is tapping the power in between, it can call this one as a feeder. I can call this one as a feeder. Tapped for power in between is called a feeder. So in this feeder, the current remains same throughout the. So since whatever is the sending current, more or less the receiving current also will be same. If we neglect some capacitive and conductive leakage currents, if you neglect that very small currents, more or less the current in the feeder will be same because nobody is tapping that energy in between. Okay. In distribution system or in transmission system, feeder connects one substation to other substation, or even the conductor that connects the main generating station to the main substation can also be classified as a feeder. Okay. So the main consideration in design of the feeder is the current carrying capacity. So feeder design is based on the current carrying capacity of that conductor. Okay. Since the current in feeder is constant, it has constant current density. It has constant current density. The two important points you have to remember is what is feeder. Feeder is a transmission line which is not tapped in between. So what is constant in feeder? The current through the feeder is constant. So the design of a feeder is mainly based on how much current it is supposed to carry. How much current it is supposed to carry for voltages up to 220 kV. For 220 kV feeders, the main design criteria is the current carrying capacity or current density. Beyond 220 kV, there is one new concept, the new problem that arises is corona. So the design of the feeder conductor is based on corona. So to reduce corona, we design the transmission conductors. Okay, we'll discuss this point later in the next slide. Now, what is a distributor? What is a distributor? A distributor is an electrical conductor which is tapped, where the tappings are taken everywhere for the supply of current. So if you see a distribution transformer, so the primary will be delta connected. It is 11 kV feeder that is coming to your transformer, and secondary is star connected. Secondary is star connected. From there, if you observe, this star point will be grounded usually. So one R phase conductor will go, one Y phase conductor will go, yellow phase conductor, and one blue phase conductor will go. So this is a distributor that runs in front of your house. Okay. So here, if you are a single phase customer, then you will draw supply from one phase and one neutral. So this is my house. So I am tapping supply from one phase and one neutral. So I am a single phase customer. Suppose my house has more load. Every bedroom has a AC. Every bathroom has a geyser. So then I cannot take single phase supply because my load is more. I have to take three phase supply. So then I will take tapping from all three phases and neutral. So then I will become what? I will become a three phase customer. So everywhere somebody is tapping supply from this distributor, from this conductor. So it is called a distributor. Okay. So distributor is an electrical conductor from which tappings are taken for supply to the customers. And the current through the distributor is not constant. Why? Because suppose here R phase is carrying 100 ampere. House 1 will take 5 ampere. House 2 will take 6 ampere. Whoever is tapping from R phase, they keep on tapping the current. So current everywhere is getting changed because the current is being tapped everywhere. So current through the distributor is not constant because tappings are taken at various places along its length. Okay. So the main consideration in designing the distributor is what? Voltage drop. So every customer who is connected to this distributor should get proper voltage. So you have to design the distributor such that the voltage drop in the distributor is minimum so that every customer gets proper voltage. So the size and length of the distributor should be such that the voltage at customers' terminals is within the permissible limits, that is plus or minus 6% of the rated value. Okay. So these are the two terms which are very important. One is feeder and one is distributor. So the design of feeder is based on how much current it is carrying, the current carrying capacity of the conductor. The design of distributor is based on the minimizing the voltage drop so that every customer gets proper voltage to their household terminals. Any doubt in these concepts? So
No,
here you
sir.
can observe that the neutral will start from the secondary of the distribution transformer. This is a neutral conductor. This is R phase, Y phase, and B phase. Okay. So there is no neutral in the 11 kV line which is connected to primary of the distribution transformer. Any doubt? Shall I move forward?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So again, concluding, the criteria for selection of insulation level in the line for transmission voltages below 220 kV, the insulation is decided based on the operating voltage of the conductor. For transmission voltages below 220 kV, the insulation level is based on the operating voltage of the conductor. For voltages above 220 kV, for voltages of 220 kV and above, the insulation design is governed based on the switching over voltages. So why? Because to understand this concept, so now this is called cross arm and this is the conductor. Okay, so what is the voltage difference between this point and this point? Since the tower is at what voltage? 0 voltage. So entire tower voltage is 0. What is the voltage of cross arm? It is also at 0 volt. The conductor, we have to provide the insulation between the 0 volt, that is the tower body, and the conductor voltage. So many people is having doubt, what is this voltage? The voltage between two transmission conductor is line to line voltage. Okay, so what is the voltage between the conductor and the zero potential? In a balanced power system, even our neutral is at zero potential. So basically the insulation in a transmission line is provided for phase to neutral voltage. Phase to neutral voltage. Understand? That is a point which we have discussed earlier. Why? Because here you are providing the insulators between what voltage? The cross arm voltage, which is at zero potential, and the conductor which is at a voltage of phase to neutral voltage. So insulation in a transmission line is provided for phase to neutral voltage. First point. Second point is, which is better transmission, whether it is better to transmit the transmission line in delta connection or star connection. Which is better? Now you tell me. Whether delta transmission is better or star transmission is better.
Delta, I suppose, sir.
No.
I think it is delta.
Why?
Sir, line voltage and phase voltage will be equal or something.
Then you have to provide more insulation, no?
Okay, sir.
Okay, suppose it is 132 kV line. If you are doing delta transmission, then what will be the voltage between phase and neutral? It is 132 kV. So you have to provide insulation for which voltage? 132 kV. Suppose you are doing the transmission in star, then what is the voltage between phase and neutral? 132 kV divided by √3. So you have to provide insulation for this voltage. So where you are saving insulation?
Star only, sir.
That is the point. That is the point. So it is always economical to do high voltage power transmission in star because the amount of insulation required between the conductor and cross arm is reduced by √3 times. Is
Okay,
reduced
sir.
by √3 times. Did you understand my point?
Yes, sir.
So if we go back and see this sentence again, for transmission voltages below 220 kV, the insulation is decided by what? Operating voltage of the conductor. Operating voltage means the voltage between the conductor and the tower body. That will decide how much insulation we have to provide. I am not telling that you have to provide insulation of only 132 kV. You take a factor of safety of 3. Let us say 132 kV by root 3 is the voltage that is appearing between the conductor and the cross arm. So I am taking a factor of safety as 3. That means I am giving 3 times more insulation so that if any problem also it will take care. So my factor of safety is 3. So I will provide insulation for this voltage. Suppose if I do in delta, this insulation voltage will become this much. So here it is always preferable to do high voltage transmission in star where we are saving the insulation. Okay. But what happens for voltages beyond 220 kV? The insulation design is governed by switching over voltages. So the most dangerous transients in power system are switching transients. Whenever you close a circuit breaker or whenever you open a circuit breaker of voltages of 220 kV and above, there is a very high transient that is produced. There is a very high transient that is produced. So for voltages of 220 kV and above, your insulation design should be designed such that even these high voltage transients that are produced during switching on and switching off of circuit breakers should not puncture or should not short circuit the insulation. So your insulation is designed based on switching over voltages for voltages of 220 kV and above. Okay. The most common question they ask is, what is the main criteria? What is the main criteria for designing the insulation of extra high voltage lines? What is the main criteria for designing the insulation of extra high voltage lines? The extra high voltage line insulation is based on switching over voltages. Switching over voltages will decide. Okay, that is about that point. Next, what is the criteria for selecting the conductor size? As we have already seen, the for transmission voltages below 220 kV, the conductor size is decided by the current carrying capacity of the conductor, how much current it is carrying. But beyond 220 kV, corona starts occurring. So for voltages beyond 220 kV, the conductor size is decided such that the electric field intensity at the surface of conductor is corona is reduced. So the major design criteria for the size of the conductor for voltages beyond 220 kV is corona. We have to design the conductor such that the corona does not occur. Okay. So these 4 are very, very important in objective questions. Okay. Understood? Or shall I explain any point again, or shall I move forward?
Understood, sir.
Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Shall I move forward? So next topic is types of conductors. This is the last topic for today. After this, we'll close the session. So there are different types of conductors. The first one is solid conductors. So solid conductors are constructed as a single piece of metal is used. So solid conductors are used where you require more mechanical strength and lesser cross-sectional area. That means your point of contact should be minimum. The conducting portion point of contact should be minimum. Solid conductors are used where you require more mechanical strength and where the point of contact is minimum. So basically solid conductors are used in circuit breaker poles, switches, isolators, etc., where you require mechanical strength, because in the circuit breaker what you will place the conductor and then you bolt it, then you keep the bolt. So the circuit breaker or the switch or the isolator should hold the conductor thoroughly. It requires more mechanical strength, so they are used in that locations. And since our size of the switch, size of the isolator, size of the circuit breaker should be as minimum as possible, so we require lesser cross-sectional area. So the obvious choice for solid conductors is copper. Copper is the material. Copper, solid conductors are all made up of copper because copper has more conductivity and more mechanical strength when compared to aluminum. So solid conductors are usually made up of copper. Okay. Next. So this is how the solid conductors are made up of. This is a solid conductor and this is a standard conductor. Okay. So this is a circuit breaker. You can see circuit breaker pole means this is one pole. This is one pole of the circuit breaker where you place a conductor. This is the other pole. You will put the conductor here. You will put the conductor in this fashion and you will screw tighten it. So the point of contact inside the circuit breaker pole, it should be minimum and it should be strong enough to hold this cable. So they are made up of solid conductors. So circuit breakers, not only small, all big circuit breakers, switches, your switches you are in your household, the point of contact will be a solid conductor. So this is a basic diagram. If you open the single pole circuit breaker, it looks like this. You can see here. Here this is one terminal where you place the conductor. Okay, it is the copper strip. There is a copper strip which you can see it is a solid conductor. Okay, here one more terminal is there. Again, it is made up of a solid conductor which is a copper strip. Okay, so solid conductors are required where you require more mechanical strength and lesser cross-sectional area. Usually they are used in switches, circuit breaker poles, isolators, and they are usually made up of copper because copper has more conductivity more conductivity and more mechanical strength. Any doubt?
Sir, where is the continuity between the left terminal and the right terminal, sir?
So you're more interested in continuity. That is not our subject, still I'm telling you. So your current will come like this, it will pass through overload relay. Whether if any overload is there, it will operate. This is the path. You go like this, you go like this, you go like this. Okay? Did you get
Okay,
it?
sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, boss. Now, stranded conductors. The disadvantages of solid conductor is that we cannot bend solid conductors and it is they are not having flexibility. They are not having flexibility. For overhead transmission and distributors, we require conductors that are lighter in weight. What are the things we require? Lighter conductor, flexible conductor. Okay, so since solid conductors, it is very difficult to string between two towers. If this is one tower, if you don't have flexibility in this conductor, it is very difficult to string between them. It is very difficult to string between them. So obviously for all overhead as well as underground cables, the choice boils down to stranded conductors only, because we have to lay cables also where the cable should have flexibility. So this is a standard conductor. This is a standard conductor. If all strands are made up of aluminum, then it is called AAC, all aluminum conductor. All aluminum conductor. Okay. Now these strands are spiraled in opposite direction so that they get the binding effect. All the strands you can see they are spiraled. They are spiraled in opposite direction so they get the binding effect. They get the binding effect. Now, what is the advantages of all aluminum conductor? It is highly resistant to corrosion. We have already discussed the aluminum does not corrode, and it is installed in coastal areas. Why we are installing? Because the moisture content in air in coastal regions is more. So the chances of corrosion are more in coastal belt. So then we go for all aluminum conductor. Why we don't go for ACSR? Even the steel, the iron portion, if that coating goes, there is a chance that the steel can corrode in coastal regions. But if all the strands are made up of aluminum, then there is no point of corrosion. So in coastal regions, we go for all aluminum conductor. Next, the disadvantages of all aluminum conductor is that it does not have mechanical strength, because all aluminum strands are lighter in weight. They are having lesser tensile strength. So it does not have the mechanical strength. So if you don't have mechanical strength, you cannot have longer spans. Longer span. Sir, what is span? What is span? The length between one tower to the other tower, this is called span. Are you able to see this one? This is span. Now, this is called sag. This gap between these two, it is called sag. This is sag and this is span. So why we require more span? More is the span, less number of towers we require. If you have lesser span, the number of towers will increase. There are many disadvantages if the number of towers increases. Again, we have to keep the insulation, again ROW cost, again lot of headaches will come. So more is the span, lesser will be the number of towers. More span implies less towers, which implies less cost. So if the conductor does not have mechanical strength, the span length cannot be longer. The span length cannot be longer. Why, sir? Again, if you ask, sir, what is the problem? The problem is that since this conductor is very light, if heavy winds hit it, it will dance. If heavy winds laterally hit in this direction, if heavy wind come and hit, what will happen? It will keep on dancing. And since the material does not have mechanical strength, there is a chance that this can get disconnected from the point of connection. Okay. So that is about the AAC, all aluminum conductors. Next type is ACSR, aluminum conductor, steel reinforced. So here you can see the outer strands are made up of aluminum. Here in this picture, you can see all the outer strands are made up of aluminum, these white portions, and the center strands are made up of steel. So the steel strands at the center will give you mechanical strength, and the aluminum outer strands will carry the current. This is how the conductor looks. These are the inner strands are the steel strands. The outer strands are the aluminum strands. Okay. So what are the advantages of ACSR? High tensile strength because of the steel strands present at the center. Because of the outer aluminum strands, it is lighter in weight. Small sag. Sag will be less. Why? Because now the mechanical strength is more. It will not have more sag. Whatever heavy winds and ice loading, whatever happens. Next, smaller support structure, high corona inception level. Why? Because that one more advantages of ACSR conductor is, even if you keep all aluminum strands as in previous case, because of skin effect, the current will not flow in the center portion. Even though all are aluminum strands only, the current in the inner strands will be very less because of skin effect. So the aluminum material used inside at the center portions of the AAC is not properly utilized. Anyhow, current will not flow in the inner strands. So instead of using aluminum material, we can use a material which is having lesser conductivity like steel. So this steel not only saves the aluminum material, but also gives the mechanical strength. So what happens? It is a better utilization of the aluminum material. Okay. Next is one important point which we want to discuss is in ACSR conductor. In ACSR conductor, if all strands are identical. Then that means in ACSR conductors, if all the strands are of identical size, then what you are having? N is given by 3x square minus 3x plus 1, and capital D is given by 2x minus 1 into D, where N is total strands in ACSR conductor, X is number of layers in ACSR conductor, small d is diameter of each strand, capital D is overall diameter of ACSR conductor. Understand? So N, this capital N, that is equals to 3x square minus 3x plus 1 will give you total number of strands in the ACSR conductor, where X is the number of layers. So if you see the first figure, if you see this first image, how many layers are there in the first image?
One layer.
Two layers are
Two.
there.
Middle.
Center, see, every layer starts with the center conductor, that is one layer. After that, second layer is there. Now you can see that if you substitute x is equals to 2, n, how many you are going to get? N will become how much?
19.
Sure, 19. See, how many strands are there in the second conductor? 18 aluminum strands and 1 steel strand. Understand?
Including,
So,
except steel. you have
for
to say.
x is equals to only one layer, yeah, everything included. No, I never said that. In ACSR conductor, if all strands are identical, it is a combination of both steel and aluminum strands. So N includes both steel as well as steel plus aluminum, both included,
Okay.
is the figure. Okay. So when x is equals to 2, the total N is 1. And how they are distributed? First layer contains 1, second layer contains 2. If it is 3, the total is 19. First layer 1, second layer 6, third layer is 12. So like that, you are going to get the total number of strands in this one. Second one is capital D is what? Capital D is the overall diameter. Suppose if you have two layers, what is the diameter here? It is 3D. If you see the diameter of the first image, it is 3D because three strands diameter will be total diameter of the conductor. Understand? So if you substitute x is equals to 1, you will get capital D equal to small d. If you substitute x equal to 2, you are going to get 3D.
3D.
Likewise, you will get the overall diameter of the ACSR conductor. Okay. So the next point which I want to tell you is always the ACSR conductor is specified in this fashion. Now if you see, what is the specification? 45 aluminum and 7 steel strands. This in industry they will describe it as, tell you how many aluminum strands are there. The smaller number will tell you how many steel strands are there. It can be reverse also. It need not be first aluminum, second steel. It can be reverse also. Here if you see, this is 54 bar 7 ACSR conductor. That means 54 aluminum strands and 7 steel strands. Here it is 12 bar 7 means 12 aluminum strands and 7 steel strands. Okay, bigger number will tell you number of aluminum strands in that conductor. Smaller number will tell you the number of steel strands in that conductor. If you add both, you will get the total strands in the conductor. This is how the ACSR conductors are described in the industry. Conductors is the hollow conductors. Hollow conductors are the one where the center portion is empty, and see here the center portion is empty, it has nothing, and the outer portion will have the conducting material. So hollow conductors are used where you require more mechanical strength and more current carrying capacity. More current carrying capacity. Okay. So if more current flows through the conductor, there will be lot of I square R losses. Lot of I square losses. It will generate lot of heat. Lot of heat. So to cool the conductor, there is a provision in hollow conductor. If you can circulate some cooling air, so if you can circulate some cooling air or cooling liquid or cooling oil, so it will offer cold air circulation, oil circulation, so that we can keep the temperature of the conductor within limits. Now second point which you have to observe, where so much of heat is produced, in those conductors which are carrying very heavy current, Sir, where the current will be highest? Current will be highest at the bus bar. If you take a generating station, number of alternators are connected to this bus bar, and the generation voltage is very less, so the generation current will be very high. Let us say the current here, it is producing 10 kiloampere, it is producing 10 kiloamperes, it is producing 10 kiloampere, and some load is taking 10 kiloampere, like that. So what happens? The current that is carried by this bus bar is very high. And why you require more mechanical strength? You require more mechanical strength because you are directly connecting the terminals of the alternator to this bus bar. That means you are bolting the terminals of alternator to the bus bar. So this conductor should have more mechanical strength so that the bolting of alternator terminal happens, and it should be able to carry more current carrying capacity. It should be able to handle very high currents. So when it is handling very high current, there should be some provision to cool the conducting material, which is possible in the hollow conductors. So where it is used? It is used in the bus bars of substations, bus bar of generating stations. Because of we can circulate some cooling material through this hollow space, so it has better cooling mechanism, and since it is a solid conductor, it is only used for short length buses, because bus bar length will be only confined to the generating station or substation. So it is used for short length bus bars. One more point I want to tell you is, here, because of the hollow conductor, the size of conductor is increasing. More is the size of conductor, less is skin effect, and less is corona. Okay, so hollow conductors have skin effect is less. In fact, skin effect is negligible. Why? Because there is no center portion. All the current is concentrating on the surface, so there is no center portion. Skin effect is negligible, and corona is also less. Corona effect is also less. Why? Because the size of conductor is increasing because of the hollow space in between. So these are the different types of hollow conductors. They need not be circular, they can be rectangular, they can be oval shaped. Okay, depending upon our applications, we use the different types of hollow conductors. This is ACSR hollow conductor. You can see standard hollow conductor. This is solid hollow conductor. These are hollow conductors with different shapes. Is it any doubt in this one?
No, sir.
Anyone else? Any doubt? No. The next type of conductors is expanded ACSR conductors. So these are normal ACSR conductors only, but between the layers, between one layer of strands and other layer of strands, we are filling with some garbage material like jute, paper, any fibrous material. So between the layers, between one layer and other layer of the ACSR conductor, we are filling with some filler material like jute, paper or fibrous material, so that we are increasing the overall size of conductor. We are increasing the overall diameter, the overall size of the conductor we are increasing. So if we increase the size of conductor, we have many advantages. One is corona losses are reduced. The other thing is inductance per phase is reduced. All this we'll discuss later. So expanded ACSR conductors are made by adding plastic or fibrous material between the steel core and aluminum strands, so that the overall size of the conductor is increased. So if overall size increases, one of the advantages is corona losses is reduced. And we have some other advantages also, we'll discuss further. Okay. Next, last type of conductors that we use is bundled conductors. Bundled conductors. So bundled conductors are used mainly to reduce corona. The main advantage, mainly they are used to reduce corona. Because corona starts occurring for transmission voltages of 230 kV and more. So bundled conductors are used where the voltages exceeds 230 kV. Where voltage exceeds 230 kV, we go for bundled conductors, because to avoid or to reduce corona. Okay. So at such high voltages, ordinary conductors will result in excessive corona and noise, which may cause communication interference. Because if corona occurs, there will be huge hissing noise around the conductor. This noise will cause disturbance in the communication signals that are going. So this will lead to communication interference. Okay. Increased corona will result in power loss also. All these disadvantages we'll discuss in corona. So corona will also cause power loss. Bundled conductors are, this is one ACSR conductor, this is one more ACSR conductors. They are connected by some link. This is called a two bundled conductor. This is a two bundle conductor, a bundle of two ACSR conductors. Okay. Now here you can see this figure, second image, it is a bundle of three ACSR conductors. So these are metallic links that are connecting one conductor with the other conductor. They are called metallic links. Now here in this image you can see four bundled conductor. Okay. So the conductors are separated from each other by means of spacers at regular intervals. Thus they do not touch each other. Okay. So this is all one phase conductor. That is, this is one R phase conductor. Similarly, exactly same configuration will be there for Y phase and B phase also. Understand? So that means the voltage of all these four conductors is same, because it is the same phase conductor and they are connected with each other, you can see. So it is a bundled conductor where we are increasing the size of conductor to reduce corona. Okay. So now you can see it is a double circuit transmission. So this is a double circuit transmission line with bundled conductors. So this is R phase, Y phase and B phase. Similarly, this is one more circuit line, R2, Y2, B2, something like that. So this is the image of the double circuit transmission line with bundled conductors, to get an idea. Okay. So that is for today. We'll stop at this point.